remember we saw the MiG-21 in the other hangar, the Soviet supersonic fighter. You climbed up the ladder and had a look in the cockpit. Well, at the same time they were flying those, we were flying these aircraft. This is a Mirage. This is built by a French company called Dassault, but in fact most of these were built in Australia. We bought 114 of these in 1963, and most were built in Melbourne.
Okay.
Now the the MiG-21 had 2 pilots and an air intake for the engine on the front. This has got 1 pilot, air intake on either side of the aircraft. You might recognise the shape of this wing. Do you remember this on the other aircraft? The very highly swept back wing means what?
Fast.
Fast, super fast. Twice the speed of sound, 2,500 kilometres. But this aircraft has exactly the same top speed as the MiG-21. On this aircraft, the pilot has an ejector seat. There's only 1 pilot. Can you see those 2 hoops above the pilot's head? So if the pilot thinks the plane's going to crash, he can escape from the plane by tucking his chin in, pull down on those 2 hoops, and 2 things happen. First of all, the canopy, this is the canopy blows away, and the second thing is a rocket goes off underneath the pilot's seat. Rather important those things happen in the correct order, right? And this long pointy thing on the front of the aeroplane, what's this for? Measuring the speed of the aeroplane, okay? But again, it's at exactly the right height to take your eye out, so we need to make sure it's very conspicuous and people don't walk into these things. This Neptune, by the way, I didn't tell you that the jet engines on this aircraft are built by Westinghouse. So they don't just build refrigerators, they built jet engines back in the 1960s. This is a helicopter used by the Navy. Alright, this aircraft isn't flown by the Air Force, it's flown by the Navy. And it's used for carrying sailors from one ship to another ship, or from ship to shore, or from shore to ship. Why do you think the helicopter's blades are folded up?
You don't want them to smash into the other one.
When you land on a ship, there's not very much room, is there?
No.
So you need to fold the blades up so that you can get the helicopter out of the way and you can get another helicopter onto the deck of the ship. In very heavy seas, the helicopters sometimes fall overboard. In this case, this silver disc here would pop off. There's one on both sides. On contact with water, these pop off and a big balloon inflates, and this is like a big life jacket for the helicopter, and the helicopter will float until another helicopter can come and pick it up out of the sea and put it back on the ship. This is built by Lockheed. This is a Super Constellation. Now, we've already been on the Queen's aeroplane. That was a DC-3 basically. In the 1940s, flying was becoming more popular, so the airlines wanted a bigger aeroplane, and in particular, they wanted to be able to have an aircraft that would let them fly from coast to coast in the United States without having to stop 3 times to refuel. They wanted to carry a lot more passengers, they wanted the aircraft to be pressurised, they wanted to fly higher, and so Lockheed designed this aircraft, the Constellation. Now, they put these very large engines and very long propellers on the aircraft, which means the whole aeroplane has to be very high off the ground. I can walk underneath the 747 and I can touch the bottom of the 747, but I can't reach this one. It's got a very long nose wheel and it sits up very, very high. I'm going to take you on board in a moment, so we have to figure that out, haven't we? This one is a Super Constellation. The Super Constellation is a little bit larger. It's got a bigger wingspan. It's got more fuel on it, 30% more fuel, so it flies 30% further. It's got bigger, more reliable engines. It's slightly longer. It carries 81 passengers instead of 59. And it was a much better aircraft. So Qantas bought 16 of them, and they flew them from 1954 till about 1964. Then what happened? Why did they stop flying them?
They got 747.
Before the 747 came the 707. So the jet age came along. The jet age in the early 1960s. Qantas bought its first 707 in 1959. So the poor old Super Constellation didn't stand a chance. Now, this particular one was built for the US Air Force in 1955. And in 1977 it was retired from the Pennsylvania National Guard. Now, they flew it out to a desert in Arizona where there are hundreds and hundreds of aeroplanes parked waiting to be scrapped or sold. And it sat there for 4 years and nobody came along to buy it. So they decided they would just strip it. They would take all the engines to pieces and the cabin and the cockpit, and they'd get all the good things out of it. Unfortunately, somebody left the cockpit window open by accident. Now, there's no rain in Tucson, Arizona, so that doesn't matter, but they have got pigeons. Lots and lots of pigeons. So the pigeons thousands of pigeons got inside this aircraft. And for several years, this was a big pigeon nest. So, when the scrap metal people came along to cut this aircraft up and they checked inside the aircraft, it was a bit of a mess. It was this deep in what the pigeons left behind, and there were dozens of dead pigeons everywhere. And they looked at it and said, oh, this aeroplane is rubbish. It's not even good for scrap. So they walked away from it. Nobody wanted it. Except a few years later, we had some people at that airport buying some spare parts for this aeroplane, and they spotted this aircraft and realised it was a Super Constellation. So, long story short, we spent 5 years and several $1 million on this aircraft, and we got it back into flying condition, returned it to Australia. Now, there were about 1,300 built. This is the only one left in the world that still flies. So we're lucky that the pigeons destroyed it, because if the pigeons hadn't destroyed this aircraft, guess what? It would have been chopped up. But luckily the pigeons made such a mess they didn't chop it up. So that was good, wasn't it? Pigeons aren't all bad, just mostly bad. Okay, so let's go on board this aircraft and have a look. Yeah, window. It's kind of like.
Coba, no le metas allá.
Alright, now just before you go up there, I'll just show you some pictures here. So we got everybody up, just make sure everyone can get inside. Alright, so this is the airport where we found this aircraft. Can you see all these aeroplanes? They're all waiting to be sold or to be scrapped. Okay, that's in Tucson, Arizona. And this is what this aeroplane looks like when we bought it, when we found it. It didn't look very good. This is what the cockpit looked like. But it took 5 years and millions of dollars later, we were able to get this aircraft flying. And that was 1995. It returned to Australia, and so that's nearly 30 years ago. It's still flying. down the rope like this.
Looks like it would keep
And that's why it's got knots in it, so that so you don't slip down the rope too far. Okay? So that is, these days, if you go flying on an airline, they have special doors with a slide in it, like a jumping castle, right?
Yep.
But back in these days, when they built this aircraft, they didn't have those things. So they had to use ropes to get out.
có vụ tai nạn.
Yeah, but they've taken out like 15.
7 engines, so this is actual scale. We call this the nacelle. It's pretty big, isn't it? There's not many engines you can stand inside, and you've still got this much headroom, okay? Do you kids want to climb up? Just be careful. You know what kids always do? They always bang their head on this. So be careful, you don't bang your
I
head.
think I'm a bit.
Have your potato cake. There you are.
Not. It might be.
That's why it's all a bit untidy at the front. The back of the aircraft has been repainted. They've done a great job on it. Now, okay, the 747-400 was a special aircraft when it was first released in 1989. 747s had been around since 1969. But remember where the fuel is kept in the aircraft?
In the wings.
In the wings. So this aircraft has got 3 fuel tanks in each wing. That makes 6. But the biggest fuel tank in the 747 is underneath the belly of the aircraft, and that fuel tank holds 53 tonnes of fuel just by itself. If you wonder what 53 tonnes looks like, it's 10% more than that water tank holds. So it's a big fuel tank for an aeroplane. Now, that's what the standard 747 200s and 300s had, and then this aircraft came along, the 400. Boeing put another fuel tank in the tail of the aeroplane, another 10 tonnes of fuel. That's what gave this aircraft the ability to fly so much further. So after 25 years, they decided they were going to retire this aircraft. It was going to go to the United States, but rather than send it to be parked in some desert and infested with pigeons, they decided at the very last moment to gift it to this museum. So we're very lucky to have it. As I said, it's the only one in the world, in Australia. Now, they had to get it down here. They flew it down here from Sydney, and in doing so, they set another world record with it, the shortest ever 747 flight in history, from Sydney to here in just under 11 minutes. All right, so it's got 2 world records, longest and shortest flights. These engines are built by Rolls-Royce. They cost $7.5 million each. It's like a big windmill, isn't it? The reason it's turning is because the wind is blowing from over there and turning the engine. The purpose of a jet engine is to suck in a large volume of air and squeeze it like air inside a balloon. And then you pump in fuel and give it a spark and it explodes. So as the air rushes out the back of the engine, that's what makes the aircraft go this way. It's just like when you blow up a balloon. When you let go of the balloon, what does it do? Does it just fall on the ground?
No.
It goes all over the place, doesn't it? Because the air is blowing out the neck of the balloon and pushing the balloon the opposite way.
No, but sometimes.
That's what a jet engine does. Come around the back of the engine and we'll have a quick look.
Oh, get the big. So it's like it's 3D.
Yeah, it's this would be really fun to crawl around inside there, but I don't recommend it. When the engine's running, the gases coming out of the back here, when the engine starts, are at 600 degrees. On takeoff, 785 degrees. How many wheels have we got? 16. Any advances on 16?
14.
18. Thank you. 18. There are 16 main wheels, but there's 2 on the front as well.
Yeah.
These tyres, the reason there's so many wheels is because it's a very heavy aeroplane, so we need to spread the weight across as many tyres as possible. I'll do it. Oh yeah, you do that. Yep. So these tyres cost $5,000 each. So if you'd replaced all the tyres on this aeroplane, $90,000. And they last about 70 landings before they're worn out and they have to be replaced. These doors, of course, are not normally open. We just open these doors so you can see what goes on here. But it's a big space, isn't it? You could almost park a truck inside there. There are 12 emergency exits. I'll show them all to you. You get on board the aircraft. Okay?
When they go up there to their bunks.
So their bedrooms up there.
It climbs down.
Yeah. For big flights, say, for longer flights. Oh.
They're up a bit here.
Still old school magazine.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is premium economy. This is premium economy. You can see the seats here are a little bit wider. They're more comfortable to sit in. You have more leg room. You have a leg rest that comes up and a footrest, and instead of a little TV screen in the seat back behind you, you have a fold-out video screen that sits here. Okay, so much nicer. Now, in 1979, Qantas was the first airline in the world to introduce business class. The business class is very nice, but it's about 4 times the price of economy. So in 2003, premium economy. It's about halfway between economy and business class. 40 of these seats on the aircraft. 260 economy, 40 premium economy, 58 business. Okay. So this is business class.
Wow.
Business class is for people who've got lots of money.
I can't go like where the bunks are. I can't go up there.
You can't go up there because it's a safety thing. Yeah, if I tried to take a group like this up there, we'd all get tangled up.
The plane.
Yeah, right there.
So, business class, you can see the seats are much more comfortable again. They're bigger, much more leg room. These seats actually fold down to a horizontal seat. Alright, so this is the upper deck. This is the upper deck of the aircraft, and this is a very popular area for business class passengers. Just don't pull the screens out because if they get broken, we can't fix them.
Put the bags up in here.
Yep, so you've got overhead lockers here. Each passenger has an overhead locker. Did you notice that the roof is curved? And the walls are curved because we're in the roof of the aeroplane. So because of the curving walls, it means that each passenger has another little locker down the side. Okay, so you get two lockers. It's pretty bright out there. The early 747s, the 200s and 300s, had a cockpit that looked like this. This is an analog cockpit. Okay, so with this aeroplane, the two main changes were one, the fuel tank in the tail, an extra 10 tons of fuel, and two, the cockpit changed from an analog cockpit to a digital cockpit. And so on a digital cockpit, instead of lots of gauges, we have screens, and we can put different information on the screens.